And so for a long time, when I was introduced to what the story of Christianity in the Bible was all about, it was a way of telling the story of the Bible that went like this. Everything was created to be perfect. Humans give in to sin and death, and make it all bad and terrible. And through Jesus, everything is going to be perfect again one day. You guys tracking with me? It's a very common way of retelling the story. The problem with that retelling of the story is the Bible. Because that's not how the story begins. It doesn't begin perfect. It begins with darkness and disorder and chaos. And out of that state of chaos, God doesn't make something that's perfect. He makes something that is 7 times over called, in Genesis 1, it's called good. And I'm pretty sure good doesn't mean perfect. Good means good, yeah? But perfect means complete. And so the way the biblical authors tell the story is God brought order and goodness out of chaos. But then when he puts the human in the garden, in proximity to his own life, what that is an opportunity for good to become complete. And that is an opportunity that is forfeited and never realized in the biblical story because they make the dumb choice, and they go where? They go out into the wilderness, and then it ends up in a flood again. Are you with me? So in other words, the resolution to the biblical story, Jesus comes onto the scene not to restore a perfection that was lost, but it's actually to reclaim a future and a destiny that has never been experienced by any human before. Are you tracking with me? And so, what I'm talking about is the overall, how we imagine the story that we're living in. So I think within Jesus' imagination, when he encounters suffering and pain, it's not, well, we live in a world that fell from perfection and God's trapped us here where we're all suffering. And man, if he was just nicer to us, he would let us at least, give us some air and give us some, right? I mean, this story tends toward a portrait of God, that he kicked us out of the good place and he's keeping us down here and we're suffering. And if he was nicer to us, he might give us some relief. And that's not how the biblical story works. The biblical story works is that we live in a good world, but man, it is not complete. And the problem is that we keep, through our own folly and believing the lies of that snake, keep giving ourselves and our communities and creation over to chaos and disorder. Are you tracking with me? And so the death and the suffering that's in our world within that frame of the biblical story is exactly what it's the natural course of all creation. If God doesn't create, it's just the way things are, desolate and wilderness. And so I think I'm trying to wrap my mind around that way of telling the story. And if that wasn't very clear, it's because I'm still trying to find a way to articulate it. Am I making any sense at all?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We're with you.
Yeah, totally. But I think the point is that within that way of telling the biblical story, which I think is actually the way it's trying to present itself to us, suffering and death is about God's good creation being dragged back into a state of disorder and chaos. And what Jesus is doing is rescuing people from the chaos and opening up a way to the reunion of heaven and earth and to completion once again. And it's just another way that begins...